3 seconds, that's how long your Border Collie had already been listening to the sound before you heard it. The car door 3 streets away, the timer in your neighbor's kitchen, the creak in the floorboard you don't even notice anymore. While you live in a world of information, your Border Collie lives in a world of sound, a completely different sensory reality that is running constantly, in the background at a level of detail you will never fully access. Most people think their dog just has good hearing. That's like saying a Formula One car just has good tires. It's technically true. It completely misses the point. What's happening inside your Border Collie's ears, and more importantly, inside their brain, is one of the most sophisticated biological systems ever produced by selective breeding, and understanding it will change the way you see every single one of their reactions. Let's start with the hardware. Your Border Collie has 18 separate muscles in each ear. You have 3, and yours are essentially decorative, the remnants of ancestors who could swivel their ears toward danger, now frozen in place through thousands of years of domestication. Your Border Collie's ears are fully operational. They can rotate independently, tilt, flatten, and lock in on a sound source with an accuracy that rivals some military sonar equipment. But the muscles are only the beginning. A Border Collie can detect frequencies up to 65,000 hertz. You peak at around 20,000, and that's when you're young. By the time most people are in their 30s, they've already lost significant range. Your dog, meanwhile, is receiving an entire bandwidth of acoustic information that simply does not exist in your world. Ultrasonic signals, the high-frequency clicks of insects, the subsonic vibrations of a distant storm, the specific pitch of a car engine that belongs to you and not to the 63 other cars that passed the house today. This isn't an accident. It was built on purpose. For 400 years, shepherds in the Scottish borders used whistles to communicate with their dogs across distances that made shouting useless. Half a kilometer of open hillside, heavy wind, and a flock of sheep in the way, and the dogs still needed to turn left, stop, go wide, and come in slow, all on command. The only way that works is if the dog's auditory system is tuned to extract precise signal from dense noise. Not just to hear the whistle, but to parse it, to decode it, to act on it in under a second. That's what you're living with, not a pet with sensitive ears, a working machine with a sound processing system that never got the memo that the flock is gone. And here is where it gets complicated. Because the same system that made Border Collies extraordinary working dogs also means they cannot turn it off. The auditory cortex, the part of the brain that processes sound in a Border Collie, is not just physically more developed than in other breeds. It is wired to flag everything as potentially meaningful. A Labrador hears a sound and evaluates it. A Border Collie hears a sound and runs it against an internal library of patterns, asking a single question: is this the signal I am supposed to respond to? When nothing matches, the system doesn't reset. It stays alert. It waits for the next sound, and the next. This is why your Border Collie is never truly deeply asleep the way other dogs are. Their auditory system remains partially active even at rest, monitoring for the sound that requires a response. Think about what that means. Every day in your home, your Border Collie is processing hundreds of sounds you don't register. The neighbor's drill, the heating system cycling, your phone notification from 2 rooms away, the bark of a dog on television, played at a frequency your speakers distort just enough to sound slightly wrong. Each one of these is being received, analyzed, and filed. Each one is pulling a small amount of cognitive resources from a brain that is already running harder than you realize. This is why sound-sensitive Border Collies don't calm down when the noise stops. The nervous system doesn't reset cleanly. It takes time to decompress from an overloaded monitoring session, and if the sounds come frequently enough, as they do in most modern homes, the system never fully returns to baseline. But the most misunderstood part of Border Collie sound sensitivity isn't the hearing, it's the prediction. Here's what almost no one tells you. A Border Collie doesn't just react to sounds, they remember them, they build models, they start anticipating. The low rumble of thunder isn't just a loud noise, it's a sound that preceded the static charge in the air, the change in barometric pressure, the smell of rain 3 days ago. By the time the storm is close enough for you to notice the sky changing, your dog has been predicting it for hours. Not because they have some magical sixth sense, because their auditory memory is detailed enough to recognize the early signatures of patterns they've experienced before. This predictive loop is also why many Border Collies develop what looks like irrational fear of very specific sounds: the microwave beep, the coffee grinder, the sound of a particular bag rustling. These are rarely random phobias. They are pattern-matched predictions, sounds that in the dog's experience preceded something startling, something uncomfortable, something the brain filed as a threat. The fear isn't of the sound itself, it's of what the brain predicts will follow. You are not dealing with a dog that is easily scared. You are dealing with a dog with a near-perfect auditory memory and a brain that is constantly trying to protect them using that memory. The problem is the environment has changed. The shepherd's whistle was the loudest, unexpected sound your dog's ancestors were designed to navigate. Today, your Border Collie lives in a world of fire alarms, vacuum cleaners, construction noise, ambient media, and the constant low hum of electronic devices emitting frequencies that are technically inaudible to you but perfectly audible to them. Their system was not calibrated for this. The sensitivity that made them exceptional herding dogs makes them exhausted in a world full of uncontrollable acoustic information. This matters, because the standard advice, desensitize them, ignore the reaction, don't reinforce the fear, is not wrong, but it is incomplete. It treats the symptom without acknowledging the hardware. You cannot train a Border Collie out of their auditory wiring any more than you can train them to need less oxygen. What you can do is reduce the cognitive load. Create acoustic spaces, rooms, or times of day where the sound environment is genuinely quieter, not just quieter to you. Learn the early signals that your dog is approaching their auditory threshold, the subtle ear movements, the shift in posture, the slight tension around the eyes that appears before the full reaction, and understand that when your Border Collie startles at something you didn't even hear, they are not being irrational. They heard something real. You simply don't have the equipment to verify it. There is something humbling in that, if you let it be. We build our world around human senses. We calibrate our environments, our schedules, and our expectations around what we can hear, see, and feel. And then we bring into that world a creature whose senses run at a completely different resolution, and we call them oversensitive, dramatic, difficult. We mistake precision for fragility. Your Border Collie is not broken. They are receiving a version of the world that is richer, louder, and more demanding than anything you will ever fully understand. They are doing their best to process it, to make sense of it, to stay functional inside a sensory environment they were never fully designed for. Every time they lift their head at a sound you can't hear, they are not overreacting.